about the narrative about democracy. Most of you know about the Encyclopedia Britannica. It has been around for several centuries. And the funny thing about reading old versions of the Encyclopedia Britannica is to see how definitions change. Now, for the first approximately 200 years of the Encyclopedia Britannica, if you looked up under democracy, you would simply see a statement that democracy was a way where people showed up at the marketplace and voted on things that existed in antiquities Athens, and that was it. It was about 4 to 5 lines. Now, after the American Revolution, or right before the American Revolution, there was a slight change in it because there at this point was a debate about democracy and the validity of democracy. So they altered, whoever authored this part of the Encyclopedia Britannica added a single line stating that this form of government is not feasible in modern times. After the American Revolution, a new edition of the Encyclopedia Britannica was issued, in which democracy was showcased as being the fabulous and amazing new showing way of how to do things, form of government in America. And the next one after that was also very praising of democracy. And then something funny happened. The whole idea of democracy died down a bit after several bloody revolts and revolutions. But the next Encyclopedia Britannica comes out shortly after radio is invented, and this author writes over a page about democracy in which he does not even try to show neutrality concerning democracy. He wants to implore people who vote, who reads Encyclopedia Britannica, to rethink democracy, where he says that democracy is too easily swayed by demagogues, it is too easily controlled by large media moguls, it concentrates power and wealth at the top, and it makes ill-educated people able to use hate speech and rhetoric and empty promises to get to extremely powerful positions, which they then abuse. Now, that guy, looking at today, could seem a bit like a prophet, but he was reacting to the enormous stagnation that was taking place in democracies across the world in the interwar years, where unrest was the name of the game, where instability was the name of the game, where demagogues flourished, where people who did not reflect, who had no humility whatsoever, got into great places of power by lying, cheating, stealing, and whatever else they could do. Now, you would then think that after this tumultuous time, that now people would have a more sober reflection on democracy. But of course, after the Second World War, and in lieu of the new Cold War with communism, democracy, the article on democracy changed drastically again to an extreme pro-democracy rant in which communism was slighted quite a bit. And when you think about it being Stalinist Russia that they at that time were facing, you can't really blame them. Then in the 70s, again, you get a more sober reflection on democracy, not an outright takedown of democracy, but a sober reflection on some pros and cons and an attempt to be neutral. But in the 90s, again, something odd happens. It is once again even harsher than after the Second World War, even harsher than after the American Revolution. It is put forward as the end-all, be-all, can only be the only solution for everyone form of government. And that, my friends, is when you get into trouble. That is when you go into war for democracy's sake. That is when you go into liberation wars, into other countries, into sovereign countries, and completely topple their regimes, and then setting up a foreign regime